Well, hello and welcome to This Day. I'm BJ Arnett, your host. You know, sometimes I get the opportunity to talk to old friends and new friends. I love what I do here at the studio every day. But one of the things that makes it really cool for me is to be able to tell a story that we don't necessarily ever talk about. And today we're talking about the history of the church. The history of the church in such a way that it'll truly make you smile. We'll first talk to Cynthanie Sumpter, who is just a joy to meet and to know because she is a professor at Clark Atlanta University. She is a fashion designer of extraordinary means, I will say. And I love this woman, her beautiful daughter, and I'm going to say it correctly, Brydai. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. I'm looking at your faces, and yep, that is your baby. That is just so crazy, just seeing you. So I never have you all sitting together like this, but welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
The reason this story became so important to me, we were recently at the Atlanta History Center celebrating the King holiday. And the stories that came from that moment in time with Martin Luther King, they're stories that everyone knows. But there was this hidden story that you guys brought forth. And I want to talk about that, but I want to start by talking about the history of the church in America, and especially the history of the Black church. Cynthania, you have always been a professor who delved into who we are and why we are. And as we look at, when this program airs, the Black History Month, and how African Americans have moved from one way of living to the next, and how that is reflected in art, how that is reflected in music, and certainly how it's reflected in fashion. But give us a little bit of history of the church. The church, and I say the Black church because I'm dealing with the community as we matriculate from slavery to a group of people who found themselves free.
Yes.
Then to the point of understanding freedom has to look like and be like something, and then a political movement that shifted everything. Give us a little bit of history.
It's a very interesting history. You start thinking about from slavery, how did the church really interact with its people? It was all about community. It was all about a place of security, of safety, and a place to worship. You know, to worship, worship God. So it really began as a community place, and it just kind of went into political, social, went into all those areas.
And, you know, when growing up, my grandpa was a primitive Baptist minister, and I remember going to these little churches in the country.
Yes.
And every little church in the country was different based on the community. So we were in Indianapolis, and there was one flavor, and it was the Baptist church, primitive Baptist. And then in Tennessee, there was another flavor. And then in Kentucky, there was even another flavor. And I remember my grandpa getting paid with fried chickens. I'm so not lying. Fried chickens, collard greens, you know, big bags of greens on the back seat. Fried chicken and pound cakes, and I remember that so well. And no service went without having, I don't know if you see, you may not even be old enough to know about this part, but they had a church social after service, and everybody ate together. Everybody knew everybody's children, and if you didn't act right, you were going to get a whooping from the lady who you hardly knew. But if she saw you doing it, you were going to be in trouble. What was it like for you growing up with a mom who was teaching at the Christian Academy?
Well, I'm a preacher's grandkid because she, of course, was a preacher's child. And I'm very familiar with the social after church and the small churches on the second and the fourth Sunday. So it was just a natural progression. At my father's home in St. Helena Island in South Carolina, we had the praise churches that came about during slavery. So there's Penn School there, and they were very active with making sure that the people who had been emancipated would go to brick church, and we had our jollof rice or our red rice, and that's how I grew up.
That's
I just
what you remember. Exactly.
So when my mom went to work for the Christian school, it was just a natural progression. It was what life was about. We were going to honor. We're going to honor God, honor Yah, be obedient. Don't have somebody call me about your behavior.
Oh, my Lord. Why did you even bring that up? Oh, my Lord. That was a part of the church. You knew that everybody, now they call it your tribe, but you knew that if you did something down the street, by the time you got home, you would have been chastised, probably spanked before you got home to your mama.
That's right.
But that was a part of the church. The church was such a strong part of our upbringing. It encompassed everything that we did and gave us our sense of community.
Yes, yes.
But then we take a look at one of the things that you just said, that what in South Carolina, where was that?
In St. Helena Island.
In St. Helena Island. There are churches that slaves built, and there are, floorboards with their signature or their mark in those churches. I can't even wrap my mind around what that period was like. It comes with a lot of discovery moments, within history, but also within yourself. When you think of all of that history in the building of the church, how did that affect you in your adult life?
It's just, I can't say I could separate it.
Yeah.
We had on St. Helena Island, there's Brick Church, but outside of Brick Church, there are the tabby ruins of the church that the enslaved people built. So you can go there now and see them. And if you walk through the woods, you see the praise houses where smaller communities would go. So
the praise houses, please explain the praise
house. So
a
praise house is a 10 by 12, 12 by 12 building. It looks like a tiny house. There may have been 3 or 4 benches. There may have been none. People got married there. They christened their babies there. They had prayer meeting there. But it was a way for diasporans to get away and worship the way we wanted to. We, of course, had Brick Church that was, I want to say, it was founded by, it escapes me now, but it was founded by the group that ran Penn School.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was what we know of a traditional church.
Right.
The benches, the choir loft.
Yes.
Of course, the enslaved people sat in the balcony and followed the signals to go and leave or whatever. There was the fellowship hall. The signal.
The signal.
So I grew up with that, with our graveyards, and my mother's father and my father are Gullah, so we're West African, of West African descent, and we got spankings because there were no aunts and uncles.
Right.
Everybody was your mama or your daddy.
That's right. That's right.
So, we had that understanding, and that's the community I grew up in. I grew up with my aunts and uncles, my neighbors, knowing that my grandfather was a pastor, that my mother was active in education and in the church, and it carried on. Like now I work in a school. I've worked in the Christian school. I work now in a school. It's just who you are. It's our legacy. So it's the Sumpter Perry legacy, and we carry that with us.
When you think about what you went through, losing your husband at such a young age, raising your daughter and deciding that, no, this is the way that we are going to live life.
Yes.
That was a decision. That wasn't a secondary thought. And I recognize your father was a pastor, but I know you, and you don't do anything haphazardly. So even then, I know that was a definite decision that you made. What made you stick with that decision in the midst of you were raising a daughter and going through life knowing all the turmoil historically that African Americans have been through, teaching where we must go,
Right.
but also living out life each and every day? How are you able to navigate all this all at once?
That's a really good question. And it has to go back to the church, faith. Just the way you were raised. You mentioned community.
Yes.
It was all about community. It was all about living the way that you had been taught all your life. It was just all about your belief in God, your belief in just being obedient to the word. It was just something instilled in you, and really there was not much leeway to go another way. It was all ingrained, very, very young.
I think that's the key word. It was ingrained.
Yes.
I remember thinking, if I did this, the result would be this. There was
Exactly.
no question in my mind, if I did the wrong thing, there was going to be consequences.
Yes.
And that brings me to this next question. Have we educated ourselves out of consequences for our children?
I think so.
I do too.
I think so. I think that we really need to get back to that belief, that faith, just that spirit that came from our forefathers, our parents, our grandparents. That has been a staple, very staple for us. And I think we need to return, looking at what is going on today, how we have integrated ourselves into the American society. We found strength. We just found ourselves, our identity in our faith.
Yes.
And I think we need to return
to our faith. You know, and we're going to talk again to further this conversation, but one of the things that I recognize is that both of us, all three of us, are teaching and guiding young people, and we're watching the educational system. And there's a breakdown in understanding why tradition and faith are two different things, but faith lends itself to understand our history,
It does.
and to be able to understand our future and our responsibility
Yes.
in it. It's a big subject that we've got to really unearth. There's so much to, as they say, there's so much to unpack when we talk about where we've been and where we're going. But just taking a look at the fact that we are responsible for building legacy moments.
Yes.
And pouring into the young people that are coming after us. So this is a long conversation. I'm so glad to be able to have you ladies here. We're going to further talk about how historically the church, especially in our community, has been a part of those things called art and music,
Yes.
and especially fashion.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And I want you guys to know that what we're talking about here has historical understanding, but it has future ramification. If we don't take hold of the things that we understood historically and pull back into some of the things historically that just simply made family and faith work so strongly together, we might find ourselves on the wrong side. So stay with us. We'll be right back